Imagine being so emotionally strong that nothing, absolutely nothing could break you down. Not rejection, not failure, not even the deepest loss. This isn't fantasy. This is a reality for those who've mastered their inner world. Think about that person you know, the one who lost everything yet somehow found the strength to rebuild. The one who faces chaos with a mysterious calm that leaves you wondering, how? I'll tell you how. They've developed habits that most people never discover. Powerful, transformative practices that rewire the brain and strengthen the spirit. Today, I'm pulling back the curtain. These 10 habits aren't secret knowledge locked away in ancient texts. They're practical tools you can start using immediately. Tools that have transformed countless lives throughout history. The most powerful leaders, the wisest teachers, the most resilient survivors, they all share these habits. And by the end of this video, the first habit is the foundation everything else builds upon. Master this, and you'll already be stronger than 90% of people you meet. Take a deep breath. Your journey to becoming emotionally unbreakable starts now. The master would often take his students to sit by a flowing stream at dawn. As the morning light filtered through the trees, he would show them how to find stillness within themselves, just as the depths of the water remained calm even when the surface was disturbed by ripples. Like this stream, he would say, your mind can learn to be still even when life creates movement on the surface. He taught them that finding inner silence wasn't about escaping the noise of the world, but about creating a space where they could see clearly. Every day, the students would practice sitting quietly, sometimes for just a few minutes. The master explained that it wasn't about the length of time, but the quality of attention they brought to those moments. Many students found it difficult at first. Their minds jumped from thought to thought like playful monkeys swinging between branches. When they shared their frustration, the master nodded with understanding. The breath is your anchor, he would remind them. When you notice your mind has wandered, gently bring it back to your breathing without judgment or disappointment. He showed them how to breathe deeply, filling their lungs completely, then releasing slowly. This simple act created a bridge between their racing thoughts and the present moment. With practice, they found they could return to this breathing technique whenever they felt overwhelmed, even in the middle of a busy day. For those who struggled with sitting still, the master introduced walking meditation. Movement can also be meditation, he explained, demonstrating how to walk slowly and deliberately, feeling each step connect with the earth. Some students found this easier. They could remain aware while their bodies stayed active. On difficult days, when dark clouds seemed to fill their minds, the master taught them visualization. Close your eyes and imagine a peaceful place, he instructed. See it clearly in your mind, the colors, the sounds, the feeling of being there. This practice helped them create an inner sanctuary they could visit whenever needed. What surprised many students was how the master encouraged them to integrate meditation into everyday activities. You don't always need a special time or place, he said. You can practice while washing dishes, feeling the water on your hands. You can practice while waiting in line, feeling your feet on the ground. You can even practice during a difficult conversation, staying connected to your breath. One student, a busy mother, worried she couldn't find time for meditation. The master suggested she wake up 5 minutes earlier than her children. 5 minutes of presence is better than hours of distracted practice, he assured her. Another student, who worked long hours, learned to use his commute as meditation time, focusing on his breathing instead of worrying about the day ahead. Over time, the students noticed changes. Small problems that once seemed big no longer threw them off balance. They responded to challenges with more clarity and less reaction. Their relationships improved as they learned to listen more deeply. Most importantly, they developed a quiet confidence, a sense that whatever happened, they could meet it with a steady mind. Meditation isn't about achieving a special state, the master reminded them. It's about becoming familiar with your own mind so it becomes your ally rather than your obstacle. By maintaining this simple practice day after day, the students began to develop the first quality needed to become emotionally unbreakable: the ability to find stillness within themselves, no matter what storms raged around them. After mastering the art of stillness, the teacher guided his students toward an equally important practice: looking inward with honest eyes. This wasn't about harsh self-judgment, but about developing the kind of self-understanding that brings freedom. You cannot transform what you do not see clearly, he would tell them, and you cannot see clearly what you refuse to look at. He first taught them to become watchers of their own emotional storms. When anger, fear, or sadness arose, he encouraged them to step back and observe these feelings with curiosity rather than being swept away by them. One student, a young man with a quick temper, learned to recognize the tightening in his chest and the warmth in his face that always came before an outburst. These signals are gifts, the teacher explained. They give you time to choose your response instead of being controlled by reaction. Through patient observation, the students began mapping the patterns of their inner worlds. They noticed how certain words or situations triggered the same reactions time after time. A woman realized she always became defensive when anyone offered her advice, automatically hearing criticism even when none was intended. A businessman noticed how small setbacks sent him spiraling into catastrophic thinking, imagining the worst possible outcomes. These patterns weren't created overnight, the teacher reminded them. Most were formed in childhood or during difficult experiences. Don't judge yourself for having them. The hardest lesson came when the teacher asked them to look at the parts of themselves they had hidden away, what some traditions call shadows. These were the qualities they didn't want to admit they possessed: selfishness, jealousy, pettiness, greed. Many students resisted, believing that acknowledging these traits meant being defined by them. The opposite is true, the teacher said gently. What you hide controls you. What you acknowledge, you can choose to transform. One by one, they began embracing even their difficult aspects with compassion. A woman who prided herself on being generous had to acknowledge her hidden resentment when others didn't appreciate her gifts. A man respected for his kindness had to face his secret pleasure in hearing about others' misfortunes. As they made peace with these shadows, something unexpected happened. The energy they had spent hiding from themselves became available for growth. They felt lighter, more whole. In the final stage of this practice, the teacher helped them discover what truly mattered to them beneath social expectations and inherited beliefs. Living by others' values is like wearing shoes that don't fit, he said. You'll never walk your true path comfortably. Through quiet reflection, they identified their core values, not abstract ideals, but the principles they would actually sacrifice for. For one, it was creating beauty. For another, protecting the vulnerable. For a third, pursuing truth even when uncomfortable. When they aligned their daily choices with these authentic values, they found a new sense of integrity. The gap between who they presented themselves to be and who they truly were began to close. This deep self-knowledge became their second step toward becoming emotionally unbreakable. They learned that true strength doesn't come from ignoring weaknesses, but from understanding them so completely that they no longer hold power. As the students grew in their awareness, the teacher introduced them to a practice that would shift their entire way of seeing the world. This practice was so simple that many initially dismissed it, only to discover its profound power later. Each morning, the teacher instructed, before you rise from your bed, name 3 things you are grateful for. Each evening, before you sleep, name 3 more. Some students approached this mechanically at first, listing obvious blessings: health, family, food. The teacher nodded, but encouraged them to look deeper. Anyone can feel grateful when life is good, he said. The real practice begins when you find gratitude in what you normally overlook or take for granted. One student, a young artist, began keeping a small notebook by her bed. Each morning, she would write not just what she was grateful for, but why. The softness of morning light through her window, the neighbor who greeted her with a smile, the strength in her hands that allowed her to create. As weeks passed, she noticed she was seeing beauty where before she had seen only the ordinary. The miracle, she shared with others, isn't that the world changed, it's that my eyes changed. Another student, an older man who had suffered many hardships, struggled more deeply with the practice. What is there to be thankful for in pain? He asked the teacher one day. The teacher didn't answer immediately. Instead, he asked the man to join him for a walk through a garden after heavy rains had passed. They came upon a tree that had been struck by lightning, its trunk split open. "Look closely," the teacher said, pointing to the damaged tree. There, in the exposed heartwood, small green shoots were already emerging. Sometimes, our deepest wounds create space for new growth. Slowly, the man began finding moments of gratitude even in his difficulties. The friend who sat with him in silence when words failed, the courage he found when tested, the clarity that came from having his illusions stripped away. The teacher also encouraged the students to express their gratitude directly to others. Many found this uncomfortable at first, worrying they would sound silly or sentimental. A businessman hesitated to thank his assistant for her constant reliability, feeling it was just her job. A mother thought her child knew she was grateful for his help without her saying so. Unexpressed gratitude is like wrapping a gift but never giving it, the teacher explained. The act of speaking your appreciation aloud transforms both the giver and receiver. As they practiced this, relationships began to change. Tensions that had existed for years softened. People who had felt invisible or unappreciated stood taller, worked with more heart. The students realized that acknowledging others' contributions wasn't just about being nice. It was about seeing reality more clearly. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of this practice emerged when the students faced real adversity. A woman whose home was damaged in a storm found herself grateful for the community that rallied around her. A man who lost his job discovered gratitude for the chance to reconsider his path. This is not about pretending that suffering doesn't exist, the teacher clarified. It's about training the mind to see the complete picture, including what remains intact when other things fall apart. By cultivating this habit of noticing and naming what they valued, from grand blessings to tiny moments of beauty or connection, the students were building a reservoir of emotional strength that would sustain them when challenges came. As the seasons changed, the teacher noticed that his students had grown stronger in many ways. They had learned to quiet their minds, understand their patterns, and appreciate life's gifts. But he knew they needed another essential skill to face life's hardest moments without breaking. Today, he announced one morning, we will learn the art of letting go. Several students exchanged worried glances. Letting go sounded like giving up, like surrender. The teacher smiled, seeing their concern. Detachment isn't weakness, he explained. It's wisdom. It's knowing the difference between what you can change and what you cannot. He took them to a river where fishermen were casting nets. They watched as one man struggled against the current, fighting to control his net exactly as he wished. Another worked with the river's flow, adjusting his movements to match the water's natural path. The second caught many fish, while the first exhausted himself with little result. Life is like this river, the teacher said. When we insist that things must go precisely as we plan, we waste our energy fighting currents we cannot control. Over the following weeks, he guided them to identify areas where they were clinging too tightly to outcomes they couldn't guarantee. A young father was constantly anxious about his child's future. A businesswoman couldn't sleep when her projects faced unexpected delays. An elderly gardener became angry when early frosts damaged his plants. Begin by accepting that uncertainty is part of life, not a flaw in your planning, the teacher advised. This doesn't mean you stop caring or trying. It means you work skillfully with reality as it is, not as you wish it were. He taught them a simple practice of observing their thoughts without immediately judging them as good or bad. When they caught themselves thinking, "This shouldn't happen," or "This must go exactly as I planned," they learned to pause and ask, "Is this something I can control completely? Or am I setting myself up for suffering by demanding certainty in an uncertain world?" One woman, who had always prided herself on maintaining perfect control, found this particularly challenging. "If I let go of controlling everything," she asked, "who will I be?" "That's exactly the question worth exploring," the teacher replied. "Perhaps someone freer and more at peace." The students also examined their relationships with material possessions. The teacher didn't ask them to abandon all belongings, but to notice when objects began to own them rather than the reverse. One man realized he was working exhausting hours not for necessity, but to maintain a lifestyle that didn't actually bring him joy. A young woman discovered she feared losing her beautiful clothes more than she enjoyed wearing them. Our possessions should support our journey, not become its purpose, the teacher suggested. Ask yourself, if this were lost, would my essential self remain intact? Perhaps the most difficult aspect of detachment involved relationships. Many students struggled with letting others follow their own paths, especially when those paths differed from what the students believed was best. A mother couldn't stop trying to control her adult daughter's choices. A man couldn't accept that a friend had changed and their relationship would never be what it once was. The teacher helped them see that true love includes respecting others' freedom to make their own mistakes and find their own way. Loving without clinging is like holding water in open palms, he said. Close your fist to possess it, and it slips away. Hold gently, and it remains for a time. As they practiced conscious detachment, the students didn't become cold or indifferent. Instead, they found they could care deeply without being destroyed when things didn't go as hoped. They could work toward goals while accepting that the path might twist unexpectedly. They could love fully while allowing others the space to be themselves. As winter gave way to spring, the teacher observed that his students had developed strong inner resources. They had learned to quiet their minds, understand themselves, appreciate life's gifts, and let go of what they couldn't control. Now it was time to direct this strength outward. True emotional strength isn't just about protecting yourself from life's difficulties, the teacher explained one morning. It's about remaining open-hearted even when it would be easier to close down. He began by teaching them to practice compassion toward themselves. Many were surprised by this starting point, having assumed compassion was only about caring for others. How can an empty cup fill another? The teacher asked. Self-compassion isn't selfishness. It's the foundation for genuine care toward all beings. He showed them how to speak to themselves with the same kindness they would offer a dear friend. When they made mistakes or faced setbacks, they practiced replacing harsh self-criticism with understanding words. This is difficult. Everyone struggles sometimes. How can I support myself through this challenge? One student, who had always pushed herself relentlessly, found this particularly transformative. After decades of believing that self-criticism was necessary for growth, she discovered that treating herself with gentleness actually freed more energy for positive change. I always thought I needed to be hard on myself to improve, she shared. Now I see that the voice that constantly finds fault is actually my greatest obstacle. Once they had practiced self-compassion, the teacher helped them develop deeper ways of connecting with others. He taught them to listen not just with their ears, but with their full attention. Most people don't listen, he observed. They simply wait for their turn to speak, or they listen only to respond. True listening is a gift that few offer. The students practiced this skill in pairs. One would speak about a challenge they were facing, while the other listened without interrupting, without offering advice, without sharing similar experiences from their own lives. They simply held space, occasionally asking questions that helped the speaker explore more deeply. Those being listened to in this way often found themselves moved to tears. Many had never experienced being fully heard without judgment or agenda. This kind of listening, the teacher explained, is one of the most powerful forms of compassion. Sometimes people don't need solutions. They need to know they're not alone in their struggles. The teacher also encouraged small, unexpected acts of kindness. These weren't grand gestures, but simple ways of easing others' journeys. Leaving an encouraging note for a coworker, facing a difficult project, bringing a meal to an elderly neighbor, offering a genuine compliment to a stranger who looked sad. These small actions create ripples that extend far beyond what you can see, the teacher said. Never underestimate the power of a moment of genuine kindness in someone's darkest hour. The most challenging aspect of compassion came when the teacher asked them to extend it toward difficult people, those who had hurt them or whose values and choices they found troubling. This doesn't mean you allow yourself to be harmed, he clarified. Boundaries are essential, but you can set boundaries without hatred in your heart. He taught them to recognize that hurtful behavior often stems from pain. The colleague who lashed out in meetings might be facing troubles at home. The neighbor who never greeted them might be struggling with depression. Understanding the roots of someone's actions doesn't mean you excuse harm, the teacher emphasized. It means you don't add to the cycle of suffering by responding with more hatred. One student, who had been deeply hurt by a former friend's betrayal, found that practicing forgiveness wasn't about denying her pain, but about freeing herself from being defined by it. The act of wishing her former friend well, despite everything, released a heaviness she had carried for years. As summer approached, the teacher gathered the students beneath the shade of an ancient oak tree. Its massive trunk bore scars from lightning strikes, yet it continued to reach skyward, branches extending in all directions. This tree, the teacher began, has faced storms that would have destroyed a younger, weaker tree, yet it not only survives, it flourishes. Today, we will learn how to become like this oak. He explained that resilience, the ability to recover and grow stronger through adversity, wasn't something people either had or lacked. It was a quality they could develop through regular practice, just like strengthening a muscle. The first step, he told them, is to change how you see challenges. He asked each student to recall a difficult experience they had faced. One woman spoke of losing her business during an economic downturn. A young man described failing an important examination. An older gentleman shared his experience of a serious illness. Now, the teacher instructed, I want you to identify one way this difficulty changed you for the better, one strength, insight, or connection that would not have emerged without this challenge. Many struggled with this exercise initially. The businessman who lost everything could only see his failure at first. But as he reflected more deeply, he realized that the experience had freed him from the endless pursuit of wealth that had never truly satisfied him. The student who failed his exam recognized that it had taught him the value of preparation and humility. The man who recovered from illness found a new appreciation for the simple joy of taking a walk in the morning light. This isn't about pretending difficulties are good, the teacher clarified. It's about recognizing that within every challenge lies the seed of growth. When you can see this, challenges become opportunities rather than disasters. He taught them that this perspective shift wasn't a one-time event, but a daily practice. Each evening, they were encouraged to identify a difficulty they had faced that day, even a small one, and ask, what can I learn from this? How might this help me grow? Over time, this practice transformed their relationship with challenges. They began approaching difficulties with curiosity rather than dread, seeing them as interesting puzzles to solve rather than burdens to bear. The teacher also helped them build what he called emotional reserves, practices that strengthened their inner resources before difficulties arose. Just as a wise farmer stores grain during harvest to prepare for winter, he explained, you must cultivate positive emotions and connections during easier times to sustain you when challenges come. They learn to savor small pleasures fully. The taste of fresh fruit, the warmth of sunlight on skin, the comfort of a soft blanket. By giving these moments their complete attention, they created memories they could draw upon during darker times. Physical movement became another cornerstone of their resilience practice. Some found strength in vigorous exercise, while others preferred gentle stretching or dancing. The teacher emphasized that the form mattered less than the regularity. Your body and mind are not separate, he reminded them. When you strengthen one, you strengthen the other. Perhaps most importantly, the teacher showed them how to learn from setbacks without being defined by them. After any disappointment or failure, he guided them through a simple reflection practice. What went well? What could have gone better? What will I do differently next time? Notice, he said, we don't ask, what went wrong? Or why did I fail? Those questions keep you stuck in the past. Instead, we ask questions that move you forward. A young artist in the group had been devastated when her work was rejected from an important exhibition. Following this practice, she realized that while her technique was strong, her submissions hadn't conveyed a clear vision. Rather than abandoning her art, she used this insight to develop a more focused approach, eventually creating work that received recognition beyond what she had initially sought. As autumn painted the leaves in brilliant colors, the teacher led his students to a grove where several trees grew so close together that their branches intertwined, creating a natural canopy overhead. Look carefully, he said, pointing to where the roots of different trees emerged from the soil, sometimes wrapping around each other. These trees appear separate above ground, but beneath the surface, they support each other. Their intertwined roots share water and nutrients. When strong winds come, they hold each other steady. He explained that humans, too, are meant to be connected, not isolated. The emotionally unbreakable person isn't one who needs no one, he said, but one who knows how to create and maintain genuine bonds with others. The first lesson centered on vulnerability, the willingness to be seen truly, without the masks and armor most people wear in daily life. Many students found this frightening. They had spent years carefully constructing images of themselves that seemed acceptable, hiding their doubts, fears, and imperfections. True connection cannot happen between false selves, the teacher explained. It's like trying to embrace someone while wearing a suit of armor. You may touch, but you cannot feel. He guided them through simple practices of authentic sharing. In pairs, they took turns completing sentences like, something few people know about me is, or a fear that often holds me back is. What surprised many was how this kind of sharing, rather than pushing others away, actually drew them closer. A businessman who had always projected unshakable confidence shared his persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. To his astonishment, several others in the group immediately nodded in recognition, having felt the same doubt themselves. What we try hardest to hide is often what makes us most human, the teacher observed. And it's our humanity, not our perfection, that creates the bridge to others. Next, they explored how to build circles of support relationships of different depths and purposes that together created a web of connection. The teacher drew concentric circles on the ground, explaining that not everyone belongs in the innermost circle of intimacy, but every circle serves an important function. Some friends are for laughter and play, he said. Others for intellectual exploration. Still others for spiritual companionship. Honor each relationship for what it is, without demanding it be something it's not. He taught them to identify people whose presence made them feel more alive, more themselves, and to distinguish these from relationships that drained their energy or required them to become smaller. Gradually, they learned to invest more in nourishing connections while compassionately creating boundaries with those that diminished them. Communication formed the third pillar of this practice. The teacher showed them how often conflicts arise not from genuine disagreement, but from misunderstanding and assumption. Let your speech be like clear water, he advised. Not a weapon to win battles or a mask to hide behind, but a gift that reveals what truly lives in your heart. They practiced expressing their needs and feelings directly, without blame or criticism. Instead of saying, "You never listen to me," they learned to say, "I feel unheard when our conversations get interrupted." Rather than, "You're so selfish," they tried, "I felt hurt when my needs weren't considered in this decision." This shift wasn't easy. Old habits of accusation, defensiveness, and shutting down ran deep. But slowly, they discovered that speaking their truth with kindness often led to greater understanding rather than the conflict they feared. Perhaps the most challenging aspect was establishing healthy boundaries. Many had grown up believing that love meant always saying yes, always being available, always putting others first. They confused boundaries with walls, thinking that limiting what they would accept meant pushing others away. A boundary, the teacher clarified, is not a wall but a door that you control. It doesn't prevent connection. It ensures that when connection happens, it honors both people involved. A young woman who had always prided herself on being available to everyone, anytime, realized she had become resentful and exhausted. With the teacher's guidance, she began saying no to requests that depleted her, making space for the relationships and activities that truly mattered. To her surprise, the friends who truly cared for her respected her new boundaries, while those who fell away hadn't been nourishing connections to begin with. The first winter snow had just fallen when the teacher called his students to gather in a large, open space. Unlike their usual meetings, this time he asked them to dress warmly and comfortably in clothes that allowed free movement. "So far," he began, "we have worked primarily with your minds and hearts. Today, we remember that you are not just a thinking being or a feeling being. You are also a physical being. And your body holds wisdom that your mind alone cannot access." He explained that in their society, many people lived almost entirely in their heads, treating their bodies merely as vehicles to carry their brains from place to place. This disconnection, he suggested, was a source of needless suffering and a barrier to emotional strength. Your body is not separate from your emotions, he told them. Each feeling has a physical signature. Each thought creates a response in your cells. When you learn to listen to your body, you gain an early warning system for emotional storms and a powerful ally in calming them. The first practice he introduced was simple awareness of the body in daily life. He asked each student to pause several times throughout their day, closing their eyes briefly to scan from head to toe, noticing areas of tension, pain, comfort, or energy. Most people, he observed, only notice their bodies when something hurts badly enough to demand attention. By then, the whisper has become a shout. Learn to listen to the whispers. A middle-aged executive in the group discovered that whenever he felt anxious about work, his shoulders crept up toward his ears and his breathing became shallow. Simply noticing this pattern allowed him to consciously relax his shoulders and deepen his breath, often dissolving the anxiety before it could spiral into panic. Next, the teacher introduced regular physical exercise, not as punishment for the body or to achieve some ideal appearance, but as a celebration of being alive in human form. Find movement that brings you joy, he encouraged. Your body was designed to move, and it functions best when it does so regularly. Some students took up hiking in the mountains, feeling a special connection to nature that restored their spirits. Others discovered swimming, finding peace in the rhythmic strokes and buoyancy of water. A few began attending dance classes, experiencing the liberation of expressing emotions through movement. The form matters less than the consistency, the teacher explained, and the enjoyment matters as much as the exertion. He spoke of how physical movement could transform emotional states more quickly than mental strategies alone. When feeling stuck in sadness, a brisk walk could shift their energy. When overwhelmed by anger, vigorous movement could channel that fire productively. One young woman who had struggled with persistent low moods found that 30 minutes of movement each morning created a foundation of stability that lasted all day. "On days I skip it," she shared, "everything feels heavier, more difficult. When I move first thing, I can handle whatever comes with more grace." In the third part of this practice, the teacher introduced them to the centuries-old traditions of movement meditation practices that united body, breath, and awareness. Under his guidance, they learned simple sequences from traditions like Tai Chi, Qigong, and yoga. These movements, he explained, were developed by people who understood that wisdom resides not just in the mind but in the whole being. As they practiced the slow, deliberate sequences, many experienced a state of focused calm they had never known before. A businessman who had always been too restless for seated meditation found he could maintain present moment awareness easily while moving through these ancient forms. "It's as if my body remembers something my mind has forgotten," he said wonderingly after one practice. Finally, the teacher emphasized the importance of regular contact with the natural world. He took the students for walks in forests, beside lakes, and up mountains. He encouraged them to feel the earth beneath their feet, the wind on their skin, the sun on their faces. In modern life, he observed, many people go days or weeks, barely touching the natural elements that have nourished human beings since the beginning of time. This creates a subtle but persistent sense of alienation. A woman who had always lived in cities found that weekly walks in a nearby park changed her entire outlook. "I feel more connected to everything," she explained. "Problems that seemed overwhelming look different after I've watched clouds moving across the sky or touched the bark of a tree that's been standing for 100 years. As winter deepened, the teacher noticed that some students were beginning to treat his teachings as finished knowledge, something to master and then set aside. One evening, as they gathered around a warm fire, he shared a story that shifted their understanding once again. "There was once a scholar who spent 20 years studying with the greatest masters of his time," the teacher began. "He filled countless notebooks with their wisdom and could recite entire texts from memory. Believing he had finally completed his education, he returned to his village." The teacher paused, stirring the fire before continuing. One day, while walking in the mountains, he encountered an old woman carrying water from a stream. "What did you learn in your studies?" she asked him. Pleased to share his knowledge, the scholar began reciting the profound concepts he had mastered. The old woman listened politely, then asked, "But can your knowledge carry water?" The scholar was confused. The woman smiled and said, "Knowledge that doesn't transform how you live is just decoration for the mind. True wisdom changes how you move through the world." The students sat quietly, absorbing the story's meaning. Then the teacher explained that the ninth habit of the emotionally unbreakable was approaching life with perpetual curiosity, always remaining open to new understanding. "The mind that believes it knows everything," he said, "is like a cup already full, nothing new can enter. The mind that maintains beginner's curiosity, even in areas of expertise, continues to grow throughout life." He encouraged them to cultivate active curiosity, not passive consumption of information, but genuine wonder about the world and others. This meant asking questions that went beyond surface appearances and listening deeply to the answers. A businessman in the group realized he had been conducting client meetings with the sole purpose of convincing others of his ideas. When he began asking genuine questions about their experiences and perspectives, not only did his relationships improve, but he gained insights that transformed his own thinking. Curiosity, the teacher observed, is the antidote to judgment. When you're truly curious about someone else's perspective, it becomes impossible to dismiss them or their ideas outright. Reading became another path of continuous learning, but not just any reading. The teacher guided them to select books that challenged their existing beliefs or introduced entirely new ways of thinking. Read not just to confirm what you already believe, he advised, but to encounter minds different from your own. Even in disagreement, you expand your understanding. One woman, who had always read only practical business books, discovered a love for poetry. To her surprise, these verses about beauty and loss gave her new language for experiences she had never been able to articulate, healing old wounds she hadn't realized were still open. The students also learned that meaningful conversations could be profound teachers. The teacher encouraged them to seek out people with different life experiences and to listen to them with genuine openness. A conversation where both people leave thinking exactly what they thought when they began is a missed opportunity, he suggested. True dialogue changes everyone involved. One young man began meeting regularly with an elder from his community, someone whose political views differed dramatically from his own. Rather than trying to change the elder's mind, he approached their talks with curiosity. Over months, neither abandoned their core values, but both found their perspectives becoming more nuanced, less rigid, and surprisingly, they discovered areas of unexpected common ground. Finally, the teacher emphasized the practice of regular self-reflection, not just noticing one's thoughts and feelings, as they had learned earlier, but intentionally reviewing experiences to extract their lessons. Each evening, he suggested, ask yourself, what surprised me today? What challenged me? What did I learn? This simple practice ensures that no experience, whether pleasant or difficult, is wasted. A teacher in the group began keeping a small journal for these reflections. After just a month, she realized patterns in her classroom interactions that she had never noticed before. This awareness allowed her to adjust her approach with certain students, transforming relationships that had been strained. As the full circle of seasons brought them back to spring, the teacher invited his students to a small cottage on the edge of the forest. When they arrived, they were struck by the peaceful atmosphere of the place. Inside, they found clean, open spaces with minimal furnishings. Everything present seemed to have both purpose and beauty. This is the final habit that completes our circle, the teacher explained. Voluntary simplicity, the art of doing less, but doing it with greater presence. He began by helping them understand the difference between busy and effective. Modern life, he observed, often rewarded constant activity while undervaluing periods of rest and reflection. Many people measured their worth by how many items they checked off their to-do lists, regardless of whether those items truly mattered. Notice how nature never rushes, he said, pointing to the gradual unfurling of leaves on a nearby tree. Yet everything gets done in its time. If you've made it this far, I want to thank you for joining me on this journey through these 10 life-changing habits. What you've just discovered aren't just nice ideas. They're practical tools that can completely transform your life. These ancient lessons have helped ordinary people face extraordinary challenges for centuries. And now, they belong to you too. If this video touched something inside you, please consider sharing it with someone who might be struggling. Sometimes, the person who needs these lessons most is the one who doesn't know they're searching. And if you wish to continue this journey of self-knowledge and emotional strength, subscribe to the channel. Each week, we explore more teachings together that help us find inner peace, even amidst the chaos of the modern world. Remember, becoming emotionally unbreakable doesn't happen overnight. It's a daily practice, a path. But it's a path worth walking. Until the next video. And may you find the strength that has always been within you.